Slater, and this is the 5th in a series of videos about ADHD. We're going to talk today about, I guess the common way to say it would be freaking out. A lot of times, those of us with ADHD, when something happens that we're not ready for, we have a meltdown. And as children, it would look like a very severe tantrum. The fancy name for this is low frustration tolerance. And so it's interesting as ADHD people run across something that they weren't expecting, whether it's good or bad. It's different than what they had planned. And a lot of times ADHD people will plan things in their head before it happens, kind of the way they think it's going to happen. And if it doesn't happen the way they expected it to, sometimes they'll have a meltdown. They'll freak out. They'll become irrational, illogical, very emotional, and depending on their personality, they'll either withdraw or they'll lash out, break things, yell, scream, call names, slam doors. It's interesting because a lot of these kids will get diagnosed with bipolar when really it is more a type of mood dysregulation. So it's important for us to be aware of what's really going on, how often is it happening. If it's happening a lot, and if it's happening related to a specific subject or a situation, then it's more likely mood dysregulation than bipolar. And so as parents or professionals, as we're working with these kind of kids, we want to make sure that we treat it in the right way. Initially, we're going to want to talk about it, maybe get stern, stop talking that way, don't say that, you don't really believe that, or whatever you're doing is inappropriate, stop breaking whatever it is that you're doing. But the best thing that we can do for them is to just give them some time and don't expect them to talk about it right now. Now, sometimes they'll appreciate going to a timeout or taking some time alone in their room or taking a walk. Sometimes they'll want to keep ranting and ranting and ranting, and they'll go over the same thing over and over again, and it seems like they're going in circles. When this happens, it's tempting for us to jump in and try and show them where their logic is skewed, when really what we need to do is just realize that this is their brain's way of processing through something that they weren't ready for. And so we need to take some time to just listen. Say maybe reflective things like, I can see how that's frustrating, or it sounds like you're really upset, that sounds like it hurt you. Or maybe just nod and be there with them when they say irrational things like, you always do this to me, you never listen. If they start talking about someone in a way that you know is wrong, just let them blow off the steam. And then later on, maybe later that night or the next day even, then would be the time to talk about what happened, why it happened, what triggered it, and what we could do better next time. So something that helps me when I'm dealing with my own kids or with people at work is to think of things in terms of boxes. And for those of you who have read the Explosive Child book, the same series is, the same theory is in that book. And so first, we're thinking we're going to get in a power struggle with our child over something that we want them to do. We want them to clean their room. We want them to go to some activity that they don't want to go to. We want them to go to do their homework. And they're resisting it, and maybe they're having a meltdown. So this would be what we call box A. The next box would be box C. So this is what the kid wants. They don't want to do their homework. They don't want to come back, from their friend's house for dinner. They don't want to stop whatever they're doing. They're upset about some rule that you're giving them. They're upset about whatever just happened. So it's interesting when looking at what the adult wants and what the child wants, is when we're leaning only toward what the adult wants, we're focusing on always getting in a power struggle. But when we're focusing on only what the child wants, then we're giving them their way all the time, which doesn't really help them to learn how to problem solve. And the key for all of this frustration tolerance is teaching them how to problem solve. And so where we want them to be is in the middle. We want them to find some kind of solution that makes both parties happy. And so a simple way to look at this would be the 3 boxes. So whenever a situation happens, we're constantly asking ourselves, does this really matter? So, if it's a safety issue, absolutely it matters. If they're hurting somebody, if they're hurting themselves, if they're destroying property, that definitely would be a spot where we as adults would step in and say, absolutely not, what you're doing is not okay. Say they want to keep playing their game for 30 more minutes. Maybe that's something that we could let them do. Maybe we could, instead of looking at it like they're getting away with it, maybe we could just say, this is not really something that's worth damaging my relationship with this person for. But where we want to spend most our time is in the middle, is where both of us come to a compromise. Now this is really important because the frontal lobe of their brain is still developing, and we're teaching it essentially how to work through problems, and their frustration comes from having a hard time working through problems. So, if you say, I want you to come home for dinner at 6, and they say, I want to stay and finish the movie, then first we ask ourselves, does this really matter? Maybe it doesn't, and we let them stay and finish the movie. Maybe we have somewhere to go, and we need them to come home sooner than they wanted to. So let's talk about how we can both be happy. You know, that kind of overused phrase of a win-win situation is kind of true in this situation, because we want them to solve the problem so that they understand what you would like, but they also feel like they're being heard and that they're getting a little bit of what they would like. So maybe bedtime. You could compromise on a bedtime. I want you to go to bed at 8. They want to go to bed at 10. Let's compromise. What's going to make it easier for you to do this? Or if you have to go somewhere and there's no negotiation, you're going to some family party. First thinking, of course, does this really matter? Second, if it does matter, what's going to help it so that whatever it is that makes you uncomfortable about going is easier to deal with? Is it just that you don't feel like going? Well, then we need to talk about that, because I'd really like you to go. Is it because you feel uncomfortable talking to those people? Well, then maybe when you go, it'll be okay for you just to go sit, read a book in the corner, at least you're there. So giving them options of problem solving whatever's going on. And then, hopefully, as time goes on, they'll be able to problem solve on their own. And then the frustration, that mood dysregulation, blowing up when things don't go their way, can calm down as they get older and they teach their brain how to solve a problem. Thanks for watching.